Hello, everyone. Kathleen Byers here. How's everyone doing today? We are going to talk about why executive women have a hard time enjoying the good life. So welcome to today's broadcast. Again, my name is Kate Byers. I'm the founder of Corporate Women Unleashed, where we work with executive women and high-achieving women to teach them how to create great well-being and balance in their life without having to step back or sacrifice their career. It does not have to be a trade-off. And we show you how to navigate your career so that indeed you can enjoy the fruits of your labor. But we've got an important topic today. And what we're going to talk about is why executive women have such a hard time letting go and just enjoying the good life. All right. Now, I don't know about you, but I have several really key moments in my career that I remember very, very strongly that I was not able to just relax. In fact, one time I remember in the early part of my career, my daughter was 6 years old and she got chickenpox. This was years ago before we had the vaccine. And I was this sounds horrible. I was so relieved that she had chickenpox, not because I wanted my beautiful daughter to be sick, obviously, but because it gave me permission to relax. And I remember just frankly, like loading up on, I think we went to like back in Blockbuster Video, loading up on all these videos, loading up all these goodies at the grocery store, getting the calamine lotion, whatever we had to get, and cotton swabs, and just ready to dig in for a week at home. And it was like, I was so excited to have that time off. And I don't know if any of you can relate to it. So if you can relate to that, if you've ever had a moment in your career where you're like, I am gunning it so hard that I just need someone else to give me a push so I can lay down and take a rest, put a 1 in the comments if you're watching this live, or even if you come back and watch it as a broadcast, because we really need to understand how endemic this is, okay? And I think we've all had projects, we've all had moments in our career that we're busy. That's fine. We're not talking about that. We're really talking about an executive woman who is constantly on the move, who has a hard time sitting down. Even in your home life, do you ever find, if you have a spouse or partner and you're always bopping up to go do something, right? Like, oh, there's one more thing I forgot to do and I need to go do this, right? So we really have a hard time letting go of the work so that we can enjoy our life. I have to share this other really fun story to see if you relate, but there was a time when I was working in an ad agency, and ad agencies are notorious for being super intense and client deadlines, and my boss and I were truly working ourselves into a state of ill health. I had walking pneumonia. She was constantly sick. Even with walking pneumonia, we went to a client engagement and I just felt like I couldn't say no. I mean, here I was supposed to be serving this client. I had this huge fever and we actually had to go to his home. We had an office and his housekeeper brought me some peach tea, or she brought all this peach tea and was like chilled and cold. And I had this horrible fever and I just like rested the glass against my face. My boss looked over at me. She's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh God, this glass of tea feels so good. I mean, it was literally just all adrenaline propping me up. This is what I'm talking about. And if you can relate to this compulsion, this addiction, this overachiever, this workaholic syndrome where, I wore it as a badge. It was like, if you're a woman who is going to work at all costs, this is what we're talking about. And this is why we're not enjoying the good life. Part of it comes from an inner programming that says you are valuable because of what you're doing. Right? And so it's like when you were a kid and your parents said, hey, be sure you make your bed before you go out and play. And you were rewarded for that, right? You either were in your parents' favor, they told you it was a great job, you got a sticker. This type of psychology is embedded very deeply. And what happens is the high achiever psychology actually takes it to like level, what's the movie? Spinal Tap. My husband always says it goes to 11. We take it to 11. We take it to such extreme heights because we're already wired in our DNA to want to do great things. And so we're taking something that's very positive, but when it goes to 11 and you're going all the way up through the roof with this high achieverness, you're actually just really not doing yourself any service. And it works for a while, right? Like a lot of you have probably felt like, hey, Kate, I got this way by working so hard and by always being available and showing my company and everyone in my career that I'm available. What else am I supposed to do, right? And we'll get to that in just a second. But so what happens is when you are wired for success and you are someone who really loves your work. Like a lot of women will talk to them like, hey, I love my job. I just do too much of it. I don't know how to detach from it. We also talk to other women who often will say, who don't even recognize it in themselves. I mean, we have worked with women and spoken with women who have, worked their way all the way through cancer, and they're showing up 70, 80 hours a week. They're going straight through their chemotherapy at work. They're pulling themselves and pushing themselves to the point of dangerous health consequences. There are a lot of women that we work with, or women that, we'll get on the call with, who are pushing their marriages to the brink of extinction because work has to come first. And at some point, those relationships are going to snap, right? You cannot continue to put your spouse or your partner on the back burner and expect that relationship to be waiting for you. All right. So what creates this? Why is it so difficult to rest and relax? Let me ask you this. Do you ever find in your personal life that you also are going to extremes? For example, do you work until you drop, and then you're sleeping for like 8 straight hours? Or maybe not sleeping, but just lounging around, can't get out of your bunny slippers, I should be doing something more productive. It's a Saturday. I should be outside enjoying, the garden, but I can't get off the couch. If that sounds like you, put a 2 in the comments. So what's happening is everything is coming to a point of extreme. You're working to a point of extreme. You're lounging to the point of extreme. You may find yourself eating in a very extreme way where you may not eat all day long, and then you go home and you horse down these massive dinners, right? Or you snack on junk food all day long, and then you go have a dinner at 10 o'clock at night with your spouse. Those extremes are very part and parcel to what happens a lot with high achievers. And what's happening really is there's an equation built within our human needs, is the need for esteem, and ego is a part of it, right? And so ego is the part of esteem that's really protecting you from fear and some deep-seated emotional triggers. And we've talked about this a lot, fear of missing your place at the table, fear of missing out, fear of getting passed over, fear of not living up to your full potential, right? I mean, that's the real tragedy. We have a lot of women who just snap and give up on their career, but then they're not living up to their full potential. And then you're also living a diminished life. So what happens is, and when that ego equation really gets a hold of you as a high achiever, there's this constant undertone in your subconscious that says, you must get your work done first. You are valuable for this work that you do. And when you're showing up, for example, in your marriage, it's hard to see that value equation, right? Your husband's not saying, hey, good job, you came home for dinner tonight, right? Or maybe he would, but we don't get the same emotional and mental high in our personal relationships. Relationships are kind of hard. They're not really well defined. They're gray. There's a lot of gray matter and muckiness there. Where in your career, it's much more cut and dry. Hey, I delivered on that proposal. I delivered on that project. I'm mentoring up this team member and watching them blossom. Those are the types of things that give you this incredible ego boost. And ego is something that you need. It's just how you're doing it that's not serving you. Okay. So the way we really want to fill esteem is from within, being curious, taking on projects that are interesting, but may or may not always have the result that you want, being willing to fail, right? I mean, fear of failure is so embedded in our culture, but it's deeply embedded with women, because here's the thing. Now that we've got the keys to the castle, now that we get the place at the table, well, you damn well better not F it up, right? So there is huge fear because we're seen as not being able to, or we have this opportunity all of a sudden to have a place at the table. Oh my God, now I'm in the C-suite. Oh my God, now I'm an executive. I better not mess this up, right? Fear-based mentality. Where when your esteem is wired from within, it's like, yeah, I'm an executive now. This is cool. So what else can we do here? How do I want to be an executive? How do I want to show up in this executive experience, right? That's what we should really be focusing on, is crafting a new identity, living in a new mental and emotional state that is not fear-based. But because the ego has been wired in such a way to really focus on the value of what you're doing and that you've constantly got to be producing, that's why it's so hard to enjoy the fruits of your labor. Like, does anyone ever feel guilty if you're actually out in the sailboat, or guilty if you're at the beach, without having an extreme excuse? right? Like a lot of executive women, what you'll do is you'll work until you've given so much that you are in a state of sacrifice. And then you finally feel like, okay, now I have permission to go enjoy my life. And so what happens is you get these little snippets of joy of these simple little moments, but it's not continuously woven through every week. There's no well-being in it. There's no optimizing who you are as far as feeling like you're fulfilled. It's all an equation of sacrifice. Oh, now I've got permission to take a break. And what we see is a lot of the women we work with are in a state of burnout to where they're like, hey, I'm just ready to pull the ripcord. I'm done. I'm totally exhausted. And again, what that does is it gives you permission to overcome your fear, to take action. And what the women that we work with find out is like, wait a minute, I actually had the ability to make all these changes in my life beforehand. I could have created greater boundaries. I could have navigated my career differently. I could have asked for more resources. I could have managed my boss differently. I could have showed up for the leadership team differently. And I didn't, and it was all based on fear. Okay. And so that is ego trying to protect you from that lurking fear that's below the surface. And it's real easy to just get lulled into that ego trap, right? So where you end up in the ego trap is it ends up feeling better to do this have this dysfunctional life where work always takes precedent over everything else. And that's why a lot of times, even in the moment when you know your kid's staring at you next to your computer and you're like, I'll be right there. And you're just trying to hurry as fast as you can to finish up whatever. That is ego protecting you from these deep-seated emotions of fear. And that's why you're able to push your child away. That's why you're able to push your husband away. That's why you're able to ignore your health. Even to the points of extreme of going through, cancer treatments and still showing up in the office, in between, vomiting in the trash can. And you might laugh, you might think that's extreme, but that's pretty common. That is not unusual. This is why you can watch your marriage unravel and feel like it's not your fault. It might be someone else's fault, or just take the blame and say like, all right, it's all my fault, but I'm willing to sit back and let my marriage fail. And it's not a conscious, glib, without emotion statement. It is just the compulsion and the addiction to protect that ego becomes so strong in us that we will watch our personal lives implode. We had recently a whole string of calls from women who were at the brink of one of two things. One is they are getting ready to, they're in a state of damaging the relationships with their family. Okay. They're already there. And they are already damaging their health. Women who are in high-risk situations with their health, women whose spouses have said, I can't do this anymore, what's going on? Women whose spouses are super supportive, but yet deep down they know they're hurting him. They're not showing up in the relationship as an equal. The spouse is giving so much more than they are. And that's just a huge trap that just snowballs. But we've been talking with these women and we're like, look, everything, what is it that you're so scared of? And they're like, well, I'm so scared that I'm going to lose my career, but I can't do this anymore. This isn't sustainable. And we're like, right, because the habits and the behaviors and the mindset you have is trying to protect you and you are not open to change. And they're saying, no, I'm open to change. And we say, great. So let's start working together. Let us show you exactly what you need to do to navigate your career differently. We'll show you how to show up differently. We'll show you how to navigate so that you have more time, usually 5, 10, maybe even 15 extra hours per week. We're pulling them down from 80 to 70 to 65 to 50, whatever. So that you can start and show you how to not take that time and put it into someone else, but use part of it to put it into your health, use part of it to put it into friendships, being a woman, being multidimensional. And over again, these women are saying, oh, I can't do that. Oh, I don't do that. I can't invest in myself. Just give me some strategies, give me some tips. I'm not ready. Maybe next month, maybe next year. That right there is fear. That is fear saying, I'm scared to death that any change I make will mess up this carefully crafted, well-designed, super successful career I have. And that fear of thinking and doing differently is such a protection mechanism for the ego. Okay. It's the same reason why we can't enjoy the good life, because the good life has to be suffered for. The good life has to be sacrificed for. And so a lot of these women, are choosing to live in suffering. I'd rather live in suffering. I'd rather give up my career and lose $50,000 to $100,000 a year in income year after year than to change. I would rather potentially continue to harm my relationships, my marriage, my health, than actually invest in developing myself to the point where this isn't a problem anymore. I would rather continue to lean into my career and hold on to the seat at the table, even if it means I'm going to damage my marriage. Those are all fear-based reactions, because there's no reason why anyone would not be determined just to create the change that you want to see. So when you're afraid to create change, guess what you're doing? Protecting your ego once again. And the ego is a mechanism for us to say that unless you're behaving in a certain way, you're not going to be valuable and you're not going to be capable. Does that make sense? So it's very easy to get lulled into this. As someone who's a high achiever and addicted to this, it's truly like changing an addiction. It's deep-seated. You've got to root things out from the cause so that you're actually changing behavior at the root instead of changing behavior up here. So in the example I was giving earlier of me being like almost excited that my daughter had chicken pox, it was like this temporary measure that gave me some respite, but it wasn't changing the baseline behavior, which was driving me to constantly put my work over my health, right? Or my work over quality time in my personal life. And so when she got the chicken pox, you know, that's sort of a short-term little feel good. Okay, I got a break. And then you're right back to it. That's not having control and empowerment over your career, right? And that's not living a life that's thriving. You're just surviving. You're just getting to the next goalpost of, great, now she had chickenpox, now I have bronchitis. Oh, sorry, I can't come into work, I have bronchitis. You know, it gives you a day or two off, and then boom, you're right back at it. Instead of saying, dang it, enough is enough. I see that I'm acting and behaving in ways that is not creating optimal well-being in this experience. And I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I'm going to get there, right? It really takes that level of commitment and resounding, defiant, you know, just, I am not going to settle. It's really got to be for a woman who's not going to settle and make that your choice, right? Because if not, what's going to happen, and this is really important for everyone to understand if you're watching this, is you're constantly going to be waiting for someone else to change. The company's going to have to change. Our culture, our society is going to have to change. Your boss is going to somehow have to grant you some privileges. Your marriage is finally going to have to crater to the point that it forces you to face, you know, what you're doing. Your children, there's going to be some trigger in your children, whether it's their health, whether it's in their behavior, whether they start to distance themselves from you. And so what happens is you're putting yourself in this role, excuse me, of waiting for something that's external to you to tell you, you got to do something different. And even then, it can be very hard to see this, right? Because that need to protect yourself and say, I am so valuable for what I do. I was talking earlier to a woman, and this was something that I suffered from as well. She's like, you know, Kate, I really feel like it's a badge of honor for a long time that I sacrificed myself. I thought that I was more important, that I was the VIP because I was so willing to sacrifice myself. And when that feels good, do you know what I mean? When that state of being feels good, to be in a state of sacrifice, to be in a state of, I am working so hard and I will do whatever it takes. When that feels better than, you know, walking in the park with your kids or going out for an amazing girls' weekend, and just the thought of scheduling a vacation just is sort of exhausting to you, that right there tells you that you're protecting your ego. That is all ego-based measurements that says this is what feels better. And as long as it feels better, there's no reason to change, right? It's like sort of the devil you know, right? So we stay comfortable and we just stay in that state of optimal living, right? It's just a state of decline. And what we see is women enter their 40s and then enter their 50s. There's this whole like midlife crisis. Why am I here? You know, when's it my turn? When do I actually get to enjoy this and feel fulfilled instead of like I'm just racing through the motions of life? That's it right there. That's it right there. As long as work comes first and you're protecting work over everything else, instead of just seeing that work is just part of a fulfilling life. Your career, no matter how dominant it may be, no matter how amazing it may be, no matter how demanding it can be demanding, and that doesn't mean it has to take precedent over everything else. It just means that it can be a choice. There's going to be times when you're working, there's going to be times when you're at home, and it's really about optimizing yourself so that you can go in and out of those two environments, home life, work life, personal life, being a woman, being more multidimensional and multifaceted, that gives you that sense of grace and well-being. Your cup is full. You feel energized. You can show up in all aspects of your life with clarity, with decisiveness, and not settling, like getting what you want. That's what it takes. So until you can clear out the baggage of ego and really understand that that is the core, that is probably the main thing we work on with all of our clients and really help them succeed at, is look, when you start up leveling where you live mentally and where you live emotionally, and you're no longer working in an ego-based way where you're protecting yourself from age-old fears, protecting yourself from all these things that you think are going to happen, these stories that you've been fed. And when you can really start opening up this concept of living in possibility of, hey, why can't I have this really demanding career and still be home every night for dinner? Why can't I have this super demanding career and still have a couple nights off every week to go play footsie with my husband? Like, that should just be the norm. Why can't I check out and go to the gym a couple times of a week in the middle of the week? You know, allowing yourself to be scheduled meeting to meeting to meeting, having no time to take a break to even go to the bathroom. That's just not, you know, that again is all that ego based, and it's easy to fall into the trap because it feels good. So removing the fact that it feels good and actually finding joy and feeling good in these other things and allowing that to empower you to create greater change, that's what it's all about. And it's truly a choice. It starts with a defiant choice that you won't settle for anything else. So if you're not willing to live with the dogma, if you're not willing to live with the status quo, and you are ready for change, if you're an executive woman who is ready for change and you're ready to reclaim your life and make it your best life and really bring your best in all areas, I want you to book a call with us, okay? What we'll do is we'll take a look at your career. We'll take a look at your situation. We'll see if what's going on in your career is something that we can help you with. If it is, we'll tell you how. If not, we'll get you some other resources, okay? But again, if you're an executive woman who's working 60, 70, 80 hours a week, you know you're constantly putting work before your personal life, and you're starting to pay a lot of heavy costs, right? Your health, your relationships, your zeal for life, your happiness, those are important. Then do book a call. We'll have a great conversation. It's super simple. We've got some calendar openings, constantly, usually about 7 days a week, sometimes not always on the weekends, but we try to have at least a couple there for those of you who are on the road a lot. Book a call and we'll see what's going on and see what we can do to help. All right, so guys, thanks so much for chiming in today. Share this video, if you will, with someone else, whatever channel you're watching it on. There's probably a woman out there who could use this message. And so whether or not this applies to you, share it with someone you know and keep the message moving forward so we can start having a richer conversation about what's truly possible for corporate women and and really reframe, I guess, what it needs to be. The corporate experience doesn't have to be the way it always has. So thanks, guys. I'll see you next time.